Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Harry Lawson series, and this is my grecochess YouTube channel. And we're going to continue now facing the chess.com bots. Until now, we have defeated all 15 beginner bots and the first 4 of the intermediate bots. And today we're going to play with the 5th bot, which is Laura from Austria with a rating of 1100. Let me share my screen with you. And as we begin, I'd like to ask you to please write in your comments what ideas you may have about our channel. What would you like us to cover? Until now, we've covered mostly some of my thoughts about chess, some of the rated games I've played, and we have this series on playing against the chess.com bots. Any other ideas you may have? Also, we have analyzed a game that one of our subscribers has sent. If you have any games that you'd like us to cover, we'd be glad to do so. Or if any one of you wants to play against me, or any other ideas you may have. But let's return now to a series facing the chess.com bots. Today's opponent is Laura, and the rules are the same. With every bot, we play twice. Once I have the white colors and the bot gets black, and once I have black and the bot gets white. If I win, I continue, meaning if I was playing the white, now I play with the black colors against the same bot. And if I win with the black colors, then I play with the white colors against the next bot in another video. If the result is a draw, I play again same bot, same colors until there is a decisive result. And if I lose, the series is over. So let's see how far we can go. Laura starts by telling us viel Glück, which in German means a lot of luck. Let's play something exciting. Yes, Laura, let's see how exciting a game can be. I start with the white pieces, and my pawn goes to e4. Lotus Judy's team started with e4. Judy, I believe she means Judy Polgar, who was one, I would say, the best female chess player of all times. Knight goes to 3. What would Judy Polgar do here? Yes, but I'm not going to play your Roy Lopez as you wanted. I'm going to play the Scotch. And the Scotch Gambit. See, now you're playing well. Yes, the knight should go to f6 if you're black. Not any longer. I think I'm a piece ahead. Let's see. You have to be careful because if I try to defend my knight in, for example, by using my pawn to f4 or my bishop to f4, then pawn goes to d6 and the knight is lost. But instead I'm going to put my queen to e2. The bishop will go back to b3, or maybe to d3 will be better. Let's leave it to b3 for now, so that attacks the pawn at d5. Let's castle now. Bishop goes to d7, and I'm going now to control the e5. Bishop goes to g5. I'm pinning my knight at f6. I have not played like Judy Polgar in this game, eh? Surprise, surprise, of course you have not. What else can we do now? I don't like my bishop being blocked on the square of b3 facing this pawn. So I'm going to give it some space to change the diagonal. I also develop my knight at the same time. Can we take advantage of the pin of the knight at f6? Pin is broken. What can I do? If only my bishop could go to b6, it would be very dangerous. What can I? I'm not sure if I can do what I have in my mind. I have an extra piece, so it would be good to exchange, but how? Oh, okay, I'm going to put my rook on d1 facing Laura's team. Can I put my knight on b6 and threaten bishop and rook? Yes, that's what I'm doing now. The rook is moving. Going to take the bishop at c8. I'm ahead. Well, the bishop was a bad bishop. I'm not sure how good idea was to take it, but what else can I do now? The pawn on d5 is pinned, but is this going to help us? I'm going to have my rook facing Laura's queen instead of my queen. Hopefully this can give me some attack. What happens if I take the pawn at c6? Then the rook attacks the queen. Well, what if the rook goes to g6 and I have two attacks? My knight goes to g6, attacks both the rook at h8 and my rook at e1 attacks the queen at e6. Let's see if that's going to work. Let's remove the queen. Let's also remove the rook. And what else can we do? Let us take the pawn on h6. Taking the bishop. I want to take it. Is it safe to take the bishop? I think so, yes. Because of the pawn on g4, Laura does not have the fork. Otherwise, if the pawn was not here, Laura could check with g4 and threaten having what's called the royal fork, threatening simultaneously knight and king. I'm going to take one more pawn on e6. Wow, says Laura. What else can we do here? Let's place a knight. No, I have a free pawn on g4. Let's take it as well. Let's bring my knight back into the game. Goes away. My bishop is in danger. I have to save it first. We'll win a pawn and also exchange my bishop with the knight. But I had material, so exchanges are good, especially if you win a pawn during the process. Check with the queen. Let's see where will the king go. My rook goes to d8. There is another check. This is going to get worse before it gets better for me. Let's see if it will ever get better for you. Queen checks from e7. Let's take the rook. Anyway, we can check queen goes to d6. Now it's almost over for white. I'm winning. Let's bring the knight near the attack. Let's take this pawn. And is this mate? I think so. Yes. So we defeated Laura I would say relatively easily. After a few moves where Laura followed the theory, then we took an extra piece and then it was straightforward. And let's see what the computer has to say. Let's do the review. Game review. I have 83.7% accuracy. Laura has 73.7, and I played for 1850 versus 1150 for Laura. Laura played slightly better than her 1100 rating. I played 300 points better instead of 1579. By the way, after yesterday's, after the, not yesterday's, last Friday's tournament, my rating went up a little bit to 1579. I played approximately 300 points better, 1850. What do the numbers say? None of us had brilliant or great moves. Best 15 versus 9 for me. Excellent 8 each of us. Good 12 versus 10. Book moves 5 versus 4. Laura had 3 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, and 1 blunder. And I didn't have any of these negative categories: inaccuracies, mistakes, misses, or blunders. And let's go move by move. Until now, we are following theory. All these moves have been analyzing theory. The best move for Laura, let's see if the computer will agree, would have been to place the pawn from d7 to d5. I threaten knight, Laura threatens bishop, but Laura committed the only blunder of the game, and that was enough for me to start winning. The knight. The computer would rather have me do castling and lose my knight, because if Laura takes a knight, then rook goes to e1, and Laura would have a tough time to defend her queen. But I would win a queen for a rook and a knight. I'm not sure if that would be better than what happened now. Perhaps. This is the best for Laura. The computer would rather have my bishop go to d3 instead of b3. I wanted to keep it here to exert pressure on the pawn of d5. I would play it later, the pawn to c3. The computer wants me to play it now. Said I did castling. Yes, the best move. Bring my rook to e1, so that both the knight on e5 is defended twice, and also there could be a possibility of a dangerous meeting attack if the knight was not there and if my turn was to play. Well, moving the bishop back to c8 is ridiculous. First, you develop your bishop and then you put it back. For what reason? I'm not sure. The computer thinks it's a decent one, but the computer would rather have Laura castle queenside. Yes, they pinned it. Knight. King moves to d8. It might avoid some tactical possibilities, but that is not good because Laura loses castling rights and also the king stays in the center. Now I play the move, pawn goes to c3. Not the best. The computer would rather have the pawn go to c4. Yes, develop my knight. Bishop on g3 now. Rook is against the king. My knight wants to attack black's pieces. This is a fork. I take the bishop. Fair trade. Since I'm ahead, I would like to get as much material as possible. Computer thinks that I'm losing material that way. Let's see how. Most likely Laura missed it. Why do I lose material if my queen goes to d2? Okay, I saw it. If the bishop went to b4, then Laura would win an exchange. So my move was not correct. I mean, not bad in principle, but not the correct moment. I should have perhaps moved my pawn to a3 first. But I got lucky. Good move. What do the computer prefer? I was discussing this. I was thinking, should my knight go to c6 instead, or should it go? And would that work out? But I saw here I would win not just a pawn, but an entire rook. That's why I played this move. I take the queen. I take the rook. Take the pawn, and I'm all the time ahead. I have already an advantage of 6.3. 7.0. I win material all the time. And here, let me explain. Laura checks from e4. If Laura could check from g4, then my queen would be lost. But this does not happen because there's Laura's pawn on g4. I had seen it, of course, and I would have avoided it. Continue takes the pawn. My advantage becomes larger all the time. King 8.3 for one moment, but computer didn't like this move, even though it gave me a pawn. Win another pawn. Now, let's see how near we are. I saw the M signal going. Computer thinks I have mate in 2. Okay, I think I know how. If queen went to b6, the next move would be rook to d8 and it would be mate. Unfortunately, I didn't see the time, but I'm winning in any case. I was 2 moves away from mate. So I have mate in 3, mate in 5, mate in 4, 3, mate in 2 moves again, mate in 1, and finally I win the game. So that was the analysis of the game I had with Laura when I had the white pieces. We're going to switch now, and I'm going to face Laura having the black pieces. Change the colors. So I have the white, excuse me, I have the black, Laura has a white. Again, Laura starts by saying, Phil, look, let's play something exciting. Well, the previous game was not that exciting. It was exciting for a few moves, but then it became one-sided the moment that she blundered her knight. The English opening, see for fun opening. Let's see how fun it's going to be and for whom. Play some book moves for now. I need to defend my pawn on e5. How can I continue? Let me develop my bishop to c5 before it's closed by the pawn. Let's give some space to my bishop in case it's attacked with a b4. This is somewhat dangerous because if I take the knight and Laura takes my knight with her pawn, then my knight on c6 needs to move, and then my pawn on e5 is lost. What would happen if I took the pawn on f2 with my bishop? Then I could check with my knight, but is there any follow-up after that? I don't see anything, so let's castle for now. Let's protect this pawn. My pawn on e5 that is, with the pawn on d6. My queen is going to take the knight, so don't damage my pawn structure. I wish this knight was not here, then I would have a very dangerous check on f2. How can I do it? If I push my pawn, then the pawn on d3 will take it. If I move my knight, don't think it's easy. Let's not start hoping, and let's continue developing. Bishop goes to g4. Rook goes to e8. And queen goes to b3, attacking the pawn on b7. There are more than one way to defend it. I don't want to push my pawn to b6 because then my knight on c6 is undefended, and even though it's not attacked now, all it takes is the knight from f3 to move. And if I try to move my knight to save it, then the rook is lost. Which is the best way to save my pawn? I'm going to put my pawn, my knight on a5 and attack the queen at the same time. What should the porter do here? I have no idea. What should you do? Let me move my rook to b8 so there is no danger from the bishop from b2. Ew! I missed it. It was a pin. No, not a pin. I'm sorry. This is a fork. The pawn at b4 attacks both bishop and knight. Yeah, I'm going to do the following. First of all, let's exchange here. Second, let's attack the rook. And third, let's save the knight. So even though the forks seem to be very dangerous, I was able to come back. I was able to find a way out of it. The problem now is that if the pawn on c5 disappears, then you have bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, and then queen takes pawn. But let's see if that is going to happen. No, this will not happen because the pawn is still here on c5. Where would I like to bring my rook? I'm trying to see a way to advance, and it seems that for now, the game is more or less even. We both have queens, queen, two rooks, two light pieces. In fact, minor pieces, they are called, and 7 pawns. I wish the pawn on a3 was not there, because then I would put my knight on b4 and I have a fork, queen and king, but that's not the case. Where can I attack now? I don't like my knight being on c6 and threatened with double pawns, but where can it go instead? Let's see if we can have any luck with a pawn at c5. We'll attack it twice. Yes, it's ours finally. Finally, we win a pawn. Queen attacks pawn on e5. It's protected for the time being. Let's attack the queen. Again, this pawn on a3 doesn't let us do what we'd like to do. Okay, my queen attacks the rook that for time being is defended by the queen, but this means that the queen cannot move. I'm ahead material even though by just a pawn, so I want to exchange. Yes. Let's see what more can we win. Let's pin the bishop. Let's attack it. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Fortunately, Laura didn't see it. I left my pawn at c6 undefended. See the bishop is pinned. Let's attack the pawn on a3. Yes, I got it. I need to be careful in case. Now the bishop is not pinned any longer, so if I'm not careful, I could lose one of my rooks. Now, both rooks protect each other. We are okay. The problem now is, no, I can take the pawn. I'm safe to take it because the other pawn protects my bishop. See if I can get rid of one of Laura's rooks. Since I'm ahead by 3 pawns. Why not exchange as much as possible? Can I win the pawn on e2? Let's see. Yes, I got it. But I'm going to lose the other pawn on b4. Not exactly. No, I kept it. But now I have to be careful because there is a chance for a background mate, which I'm not going to allow to happen. How do I defend myself? Since Laura has a dark-colored bishop, I don't want the escape square to be g7 because perhaps the bishop may control it. So that's why I move my h-pawn to a6. Oh, I lost my bishop. Let me see what happened. I blundered because my bishop should have taken the rook. And now it's really becoming very dangerous. Let me win the pawn. I'll try to promote the pawn, see if this can be done, because really, after blundering my bishop, things are not going well at all. Can I promote? Yes, I promoted. Good. That is not good for me. Of course, Laura, is not good for you. And now you're going to lose much more. Okay, I'm winning again. I really got scared for a moment because I blundered my bishop. Instead of winning the rook or the exchange, I'm not going to blunder again. I have a ready bishop to win. Win another pawn. He needs to move. Now Laura has no pieces anywhere, so It seems that the game is mine. So long as I don't stalemate. I'm trying to mate. Have to be careful because the pawn does not protect these two squares, protects the other two. If you're not careful, and this is happening with even with strong players, they're being confused. They thought the pawn was going the other way around and ended up losing important pieces, thinking that they were protected by the pawns. I think that's mate now in next move. Yes, this is mate, and we had maybe you're the next Judy Polka. Want to play again? We play the second time Polka. And no, I'm not the next Judy Polka because Judy Polka had ratings 1,000 points higher than mine. She was one of the top players in the world. Even though my success in the recent tournament gave me a few extra rating points, I'm way, way, way behind her. But let's analyze the game and see what happened. Game review. I had a scare. You'll see there was a point where Laura had the advantage. But fortunately, these bots, even the intermediate, sometimes you can get away with blunders. I had 74.9 accuracy versus 67.5. And our ratings are dismal, to put it mildly. My rating, I played for 1450, which is more than 100 points below my real rating. And poor Laura played 300 points below herself, only for 800. Statistics. Two great moves for me. We'll see which one they were. 19 for versus 16, best moves for me. Excellent. 12 for Laura, 11 for me. Good. 4 for me, 3 for Laura. Book 4 for each of us. Inaccuracies. 6 for Laura. Here, unlike the previous category where I had none of the negatives and Laura had very few, here we have both very quote unquote good numbers in all these negatives. 6 inaccuracies each of us. Mistakes 9 for Laura, 3 for me. Misses 3 for Laura, 6 for me, and 1 blunder for Laura. That's what exactly happened move by move. The English opening, until now it's book. And the first 4 moves were book. The 5th move now you see Laura plays an inaccurate move. Ideally, the bishop should have gone to g2. If you move your pawn to g3 for fianchetto, the next move, bishop should go to g2. Mine was not good, but I needed a safe square for my bishop in case it was attacked. Let's assume it was attacked with b4 and c5. At least my bishop would be safe there. Yes, moving the same piece twice is not a good strategy. The computer would rather have me push my pawn on to e4, but after the knight goes, for example, to g4, the pawn is not yet lost, but one needs to pay attention to that. And now we're playing more or less a game. The game is even. Take back with the queen, of course. Inaccuracy. The computer and Laura is ahead by 0.1. Rook goes to f1, not a good idea. Neither is mine. We both played a lot of inaccuracies. Queen goes to b3, and I have advantage of 2.8. Why so high? Did I miss anything? Yes, I should have, according to the computer, I should have allowed Laura to take the b7 and push my pawn to e4. I don't understand why, because not only the b7 is lost, which perhaps could be a poisonous pawn, but the knight at c6 is attacked and is undefended. And yes, it's true I attacked this knight here, but okay, understand. Maybe if Flora went all the way to win material, I would win even more material. And this is a bad move for me, clearly a mistake, because now I'm allowing the fork. But as you saw, instead of feeling desperate and feeling bad out of the fork, I found a way out of it. Even the computer doesn't think it's a good move, but it's only a miss if you play correctly. The computer would rather have the knight go to g5. When I saw this fork, I wasn't feeling nice because I was afraid that I would lose one of the two pieces. And this happened the following way. First of all, I had to change my bishop with a knight. Why? Because otherwise the threat against the rook would not work. Computer doesn't like it. Would rather have my pawn attack the knight. Computer doesn't even like this threat. The computer found different ways. For example, attack the bishop. Yes, because if I attack the bishop, it would be a double threat. The bishop would have to go somewhere, or the pawn takes it, and then the queen takes the rook. Finally, I was able to avoid the fork and save both of my pieces, the bishop and the knight, but it seems that I get a chance to do even better, because I could have made the fork of my own. Continue now, I have an advantage of 0.9. Still we're even, both of us. Knight becomes 0.5 with my queen going to e7. Not a good idea. The computer would rather have my knight go there, so it also attacks the bishop, and due to the pin, the pawn. No, there's no pin yet because of this pawn, but clearly I would expose Laura's king. Computer would rather have me take with the pawn, and since I was ahead, I wanted to exchange. Now there's, even though I have an extra pawn, the game is even. You see the 0.0 here. And perhaps we could see even better the evaluations. Yes. 0.07 is for Laura at this part of the board. Now I have 1.89 because a pawn was pushed unnecessarily. Yes, instead of pinning the bishop, I should have pushed my pawn. Another wrong move, and Laura is ahead again by 0.05. The evaluation bar goes back and forth. Both of us have misses, errors, bundles. I got a second pawn, and also, yes, I have a pass pawn. The pawn A6 is pass pawn. What would the computer want me to do? Instead of moving my rook by A rook, to move my B rook to A8. to A1. And I win the pawn, and computer thinks it's great. I'm not sure why it is great. It was more or less obvious. But I have an advantage now of 4.44. Exchange materials inside my head. Win the pawn. Still ahead by 2.83. And believe it or not, here I blundered completely. While I'm ahead by 5.08, I was so scared of the back rank that I missed the fact that my bishop could take the rook. And this is me to blunder. Let's see how will the computer think. Of course, it's a blunder, clearly. From being +5, now Laura has the advantage of 2.69. And Laura grabs my bishop. But you'll see how I came back. Even though I was below and theoretically I was lost, I decided not to despair, but instead, let's see what we can do. And when you're down, then if you can find a mating attack, great. The next good idea is try to push pawns towards promotion. So I had the G pawn at G5. It was passed, meaning nothing was in its way. Would it be possible to push it all the way to G1? Ideally, the bishop should have taken my pawn. That would have been the best move to avoid any possibility of what happened later, of the pawn promoting. Push the pawn. Bishop goes to the wrong square. It should have gone to f4 to stop the pawn from going to g3. Pawn goes to g3. Now you see little by little I start being ahead. And at this point, the promotion is sure. That's why from even score, now I'm extra 654. The rook should have gone to b1 because things are not so easy for me at that point. What can I do? If I can put the pawn on g2 and the rook on f1, I can win, but not so obvious how. Now, of course, great. The pawn goes to g2. Even though I lose the pawn at a6, after this promotion, I'm winning. And now I take advantage of what's called an X-ray or skewer. I check the queen, checks the king, and once the king moves, behind it is a rook. That is what is called a skewer. And now computer says mating. In fact, the mates existed long time ago. Okay. From that point on, I have mating 12 moves. I have mating 11, mating 9, mating 5, in 6, in 4, 3. Now this goes back and forth between 3s and 4s. 2 moves, in 3 moves, 4 moves again. Finally in 1, and it is made. This concludes my game versus Laura. And let's see which pot is going to be the next one. It's going to be Sven for Slovenia. Again, another 1100 bot. We defeated Laura from Austria with a rating of 1100. We have one more with 1100 Sven. With white, I think my win was very straightforward. With black, none of us played well, and at some points I blundered and I was going to lose. At least a lesson for the viewers. If the situation seems to be bad, see how don't despair. See if there is any way to get out of it. Myself, with black pieces, twice I was in a difficult situation. First, the pawn at b4 forked my bishop and my knight, and even though I didn't play the best continuation, at least I got out of the fork. And the second case was when I blundered my bishop. Although I was down in material and were going for a losing ending, I was able to push my pawn. Of course, I took advantage of Laura's errors, but I took my pawn from g5 all the way down to g1 and promoted it. Let's see up to what level will the bots let me get away with errors like this. We completed with Laura, and next video is going to be versus Sven from Slovenia. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Thanks to the subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, you may want to consider just all you need to do is just click the subscribe button. Thanks for the people that click the like buttons and for the ones that leave us some some positive comments. That's it for now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Harry Lasaneziris. This is Greco Chess. Goodbye.